the sun on the field, the feeling I feel when I'm living my life for what's real. Make America healthy, feeling like it's time for a change. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back up healthy again.
All right. What's good, friends?
What's going on, guys?
Greetings. Welcome to Club MAHA Live, May 14th, 2025. I'm Kyle Kemper here with Billy Zero, Johnny Paradise, and we got Damo in the house as well. And we've got a special guest tonight named Jim Lee, who's going to be joining us. We're going to be doing a deep dive into geoengineering, cloud seeding, contrails, chemtrails, aluminum, nanoparticles, farming, agriculture, all the good stuff. So very excited. Ian is on sabbatical. He's transitioned to be Candace Owens for a little bit, and but he'll be back. And Dustin is not with us this evening either. So let's go. Billy, do you have that clip? You made a little intro clip. Do you have that clip ready?
No.
No? Oh.
It's coming. We'll get to it. That's not ready for prime time yet.
Yeah, we've got to spruce up the intro. One of the things that Dustin and the Tinfoil and Tokens crew are doing is like every time a different guest comes on, they've got like a fun little video welcoming them. It's a good move. It's a good move. But I don't want to waste much time, and I don't want to keep Jim waiting too long. But I want to want to cover a couple of the key things that have happened. And I saw a link. Lauren posed this one today. I want to show you guys, and let's discuss real quick. All right.
With less. The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated.
This is the founder of Ben & Jerry's right here.
Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
With less.
Oh, Bobby, you look genuinely kind of scared there for a moment.
The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
RFK fills people with hate. RFK fills people with hate.
What a bunch of madness, huh? Is that what they were saying? I was trying to make that out.
That's what apparently they were saying. And that old guy at the end there was like Ben Cohen, who was one of the founders of Ben & Jerry's, the Ben in Ben & Jerry's. He was there as well. And it wasn't a particularly good look. I remember during RFK's confirmation hearings, because I was there, and there was there was a whole line of people that kind of like one at a time started disrupting and doing that stuff. But I just it really fills people with hate. I don't know. What do you guys
think? It's an old tactic of the Marxists to project what you're really doing. And this is what I see from the left is this identity politics, which is all just about, it's not about coming together. It is about this partisanship, and it's nonsense. We're getting all the petroleum dyes getting out of the food supply, and where's everybody to celebrate that? So
we start looking at the facts too. Representative Rosa DeLaura from Connecticut, she was going off today, and she's got purple hair, and she's just kind of going off on Bobby for slashing these budgets. And if you really look at what they're doing and you follow what's actually happening, he's consolidating all of the waste. And he tries to say this in the meeting, and she can't hear it. it's like the words that are coming out of his mouth are just like, wah, wah, wah. So just so that she can talk again. And I've communicated with people like that where, you talk to them and it's clear at the end of you speaking for 18 seconds, they heard none of it and they ramble on about something else. And that's what she was doing. And it's amazing thing about Bobby is the amount of facts that he has in his head and the data, which I've met a couple people that have that many facts and data that they can recall. And he said there was 42 maternal agencies. And he's been talking about these different agencies, like, and how many communications directors and how many different people working on graphics. And like, there's so many people and so much waste that's kind of one of the main things he's doing. And another representative, Angela, also Brooks from Maryland. I'm ashamed of her. She's actually done a protest at HHS to get Bobby out. She just thinks, vaccines are the end all be all. And they're just grilling Bobby over vaccines and, slashing the budget and doing the wrong thing. And at no time did they actually let him speak in a long form or listen to the words and have a constructive debate.
I mean, they won't let him speak, but we'll let him speak. Let's see what Bobby has to say here.
Anybody thinks that we did gold standard medicine in this country from these institutions, look at our children. They're the sickest children in the world. Laura, you say that excuse me, Congressman DeLauro, you say that you've worked for 20 years on getting food dye out. Give me credit. I got it out in 100 days. All right, so let's work together and do something that we all believe in, which is have healthy kids in our country, for God's sake.
Ms. Dean.
That together. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. There's just kids, and we should all be be concerned with them.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Ms. Dean.
He had a great line for everybody with all this static about vaccines and about measles, especially, saying, oh, the outbreak after outbreak, they're trying to make just a mountain out of this molehill. And then it's like, no, look, all these other countries, they've got way more measles than we do. We're handling it as good as anybody can. And it just really just ends the conversation, shows that the narrative's got nothing to it.
Yeah. One of the key points is after COVID, our kids have degraded in their health. There's a number of studies from the time they spend on the screens to the masks they wear, to the food that they ate, to eating out, to vitamin D deficiency, all of this set up for these kids to get more diseases like measles, whether vaccinated or not. They were set up, and that's what we're seeing across the globe. And that's something that I'm very concerned about. These congressmen and senators just really not paying attention to the facts and playing partisan politics, like you said, Johnny, just like picking their side, digging in, and not really wanting to get to the meat of the issue, which is pretty sad for our government at this point.
Somebody made the point, it's we got all these Democrats that have come over, Tulsi and Kennedy, and Trump himself was a Democrat before too long. So, it's got a chance at a real unity government to set things right. And there should be more people coming over from the left. And it just shows where we're at in this country, this bipartisanship in the media. We really got to do a whole lot better.
A couple other quick tidbits. Dr. Asim Malorta, he's a British cardiologist that was ridiculed over there, basically almost stripped of his rights, said he was spreading misinformation on the COVID vaccine. He's coming over to be the chief medical advisor for HHS. So pretty cool. He's going to be working with Bhattacharya. Now they've got a tight little team. I know people are talking about, not the right people in some of these positions. But, one thing I want to say, we talked about Callie and Casey Means. I wanted to address this because it's been in the news, and it's been a grilling on Capitol Hill. It's been a grilling on the Means. And the one thing that I have to say here is that if you look what happened to the Democratic Party, I think they lost primarily because about 20 million of us got really fed up with being called a racist or an anti-vaxxer or a Nazi or, anti this or anti that. They lost a piece of the party because they didn't listen to a piece of their party, and they lost the election. The one thing I want to say about these people that are coming in, whether you like them or not, we have to give Bobby the chance, and we have to, if they do something wrong, that's the time to speak out, but not right off the bat. I think we got to fall in line and really be part of a team here And there's going to be some things that don't work out. But I fear that we could do what the Democrats did, which is eviscerate their party over the fact that just a small piece of their party kind of tended to disagree. We disagreed on a couple of things like immigration, some of the transgender policies, the COVID vaccine. And those people, to me, about 20 million of us just said, adios, like I'm done with you. I'm in my 50s now. This is not the Democratic Party I woke up, I cut my teeth on. We were peaceful. We were anti-war. We were medical freedom. We were, love and peace. And this is not what I grew up with. That's what I want the people under 40 to understand. You might be in something, but I believe it's a brainwashing. And that thing that happened to the Democratic Party, I don't want to happen to the independent movement and the MAHA movement.
Right. And so there's some other updates as well, Billy, on the MAHA movement and towards independence too. And that's the formation of the MAHA Institute, right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's American Values. That's the PAC that basically was responsible for helping Bobby get as far as he did. They're basically launching a think tank initiative that's pulling together a roundtable of individuals, people, government officials, activists, to figure out what the issues are, fundamentally work with the messaging coming from the HHS, from HHS, drill that down to state level, and try to figure out how to make a difference in, the difference between what's going on nationally and what's going on in at state level. And this is where the magic is going to happen. And this is where the magic has not been happening. For example, North Dakota and Georgia, first two states to pass the Monsanto Bear Protection Act, basically protecting agrochemical companies, full liability protection. That's 2 states out of 50 now, and it's getting ready to ripple down to maybe another 5 or 10. Washington State now has laws that are coming up that are quite crazy, meaning like one of them, it's an involuntary medical law, which states that, if your kid breaks a bone and gets in an ambulance and it doesn't have COVID, they could force him to get COVID because they deem that necessary. They're also bringing back
the COVID shot. Yeah.
COVID shot, like anything. Like if you don't have the measles shot, or if you don't have it's involuntary forcing of medicine in that state. They're also doing some crazy stuff around pandemics. Like they can shut your business down. They can make you stay inside. Like there's a whole list of these like really big brother big brother stuff that they're proposing in Washington State. So what the MAHA Institute is going to be doing is through a collection of individuals really trying to drive that narrative between national stuff to state stuff, to state level action, because that's where we're going to end up losing and winning. And I fear what we're in right now is what's starting to become a civil war of states, where if you want your ultimate freedom, you're going to pick these 25 states. And if you want this other thing, you're going to pick these other 25 states. Like people are literally moving states to be in a place that they feel comfortable. And that's where this is going right now.
I tell you, I'd be ready to move out of Washington if that became law. That's crazy, isn't it?
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Damo, you want to add anything? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Muted.
Sorry, guys. No, not at the moment, but I am heading home, so my camera will be better in just a minute. Had to finish my shift.
All right, let's go. Okay, well, should we dive in with Jim?
Yeah.
So before I bring on Jim, I'm going to play this clip of Bobby talking about that Jim just shared, of Bobby talking about jet fuel, and then let's dive in. All right, I am super stoked for this. All right, let's boom, boom, boom.
My name is Emily, and my biggest concern is the stratospheric aerosol injections that are continuously peppered on us every day. Bromium, aluminum, strontium, it's sprayed in our skies all day long. And I know you've talked to Dane Wigington about this. He seems to be one of the experts in the field.
Is there a question?
Yes. How do we stop it?
That is not happening in my agency. We don't do that. It's done, we think, by DARPA, and a lot of it now is coming out of the jet fuel.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Those materials are put in jet fuel. I'm going to do everything in my power to stop it. We're bringing on somebody who's going to think only about that. find out who's doing it and holding them accountable.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
A
sir.
long time coming, huh? We've been waiting on that.
Jim Lee, welcome to the Club Maha podcast. How are you feeling, buddy?
Pretty good. Want to fight about it? How y'all doing tonight?
Doing excellent. Doing excellent. Oh, man. So that's been the first 100 days, and we see Bobby kind of talking, Dr. Phil giving us that update. But, this is a topic that you've been, have dedicated a lot of your pranic energy towards, right?
You could say that. Since about 2005, so going on 20 years.
Wow. And why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we can kind of like delve into like the MAHA relations, what's really happening, how can we fix it, and just drive on all this stuff.
Sure. Sounds a little okay there. It's just my volume. I'm like, is my mic actually that low? All right. So yeah, I'm 48 years old. That's my real name. My phone number, my address has been on my website for 20 years now. I did that out of self-preservation. Let's just put it that way. I've been a hacker since I was 12. I have a photographic memory. I've been married 26 years. I have 2 daughters, 15 and 8. And up till the birth of my first daughter, I was pretty much, video game designer, graphics designer, smoking pot, not caring about anything in the world. And I had learned about a lot of these things, and it was kind of, my daughter was born, and I felt like maybe I should do something, with my life. There was a purpose outside of my own self-pleasure, let's put it that way. And that really drove me to take up the call against geoengineering. The idea that, whatever your beliefs are on climate change, the climate has always changed. But, this whole global warming cult that's, basically, it's like every other cult I've ever, studied. It's all about the money. We have a politician, ex-lieutenant governor here in South Carolina. And he has a show every morning called Wake Up Carolina. And he said the thing that really stuck with me. In politics, there was a saying, money is the answer. Now, what is the question? And when I look at everything through that lens, and I'm highly skeptical. So I don't, the slogan on my website, ClimateViewer.com, is where conspiracy meets reality. So one of the things that, I was brought up with was a strong set of morals, and that you don't take advantage of people, whether it's based on fear, for personal gain. If you're going to do a thing, and, being a Christian, if you're going to do a thing and you're saying you're doing it for these reasons, and you damn well better mean it, and come hell or high water, come pain or sorrow, you're going to stick by your morals. So I've been brutally honest with, everybody who's followed me for the last 20 years. And that's gained me respect, not just from, people in the public, but literally the people I'm saying, I want to ban geoengineering. Meanwhile, I'm emailing David Keith and Ken Caldera. I mean, I'm talking to people who steer hurricanes. I literally am getting inside information from people who are going to the United Arab Emirates rainfall enhancement program, and they're telling me about companies that are steering hurricanes and have Department of Defense contracts. So building trust, not just with the public, but even the people that, that I am at odds with, let's just put it that way. I'm all for banning geoengineering. And at the same time, I don't demonize these people. There's a saying in the political world that, and I may butcher this the first time, but Republicans think that Democrats are good people with bad ideas, and Democrats think that Republicans are bad people with bad ideas, or evil people. And I don't, and that's why I don't talk about politics at all, because in the world of weather warfare, geoengineering, spraying chemicals over your head, they don't discriminate. They don't care what your race is. They don't care what your sex, your ethnicity. They don't care about your political beliefs, your religious beliefs. We all breathe the same air. So if we're truly going to make America healthy again, and we do like clear blue skies, then we should all, regardless of our political affiliations, agree on this subject. And so far, by keeping politics out of everything that I discuss, I'm a rugged individualist myself. In case anybody's wondering, I am from Sumter, South Carolina. I did vote for Trump only because I hate politicians equally and I wanted a human hand grenade. And I got it the first time. And I think I've got my human thermonuclear device implanted in DC this time. But we shall see. So far, it's paying off in dividends. I was thoroughly stoked that, Bobby got in. And I went and I met Bobby when he came to my hometown. And that's the other link I threw up in chat. They actually had the MAHA nominations forum. It was like nominations for the people. And I was actually the highest voted person for the environmental protection in national, anyway, they had a thing. But basically it was like, I'm forgetting what the categories I was nominated, but I was nominated in a couple of categories. But yeah, I made a short link on climateviewer.com/MAHA, and it would take you there. And as soon as he was sworn in as the DHHS secretary, they took down the forum. So much for that. But
democracy, kind of crowdsourced.
Yeah.
Crowdsourced administration, really cool in concept.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I was on an X Space with like close to 5,000 listeners, and this was with Bill Elmore, and there was a lady who came in and she's like, I actually work with the nominees for the people, and I'm telling you, this is legit. They're going to be looking through these lists for people because he's got to fill like 4,000 jobs and all that. And I'm like, I still don't believe it, but it's still a fun experiment. But needless to say, I actually have been in somewhat direct contact with RFK. And much to the chagrin of a lot of people, did Bobby come to the conclusion that it's in the jet fuel. Because I actually testified at the EPA in 2015. I'm the reason why a hearing was held on jet pollution. And at that hearing, I basically said everything I'm still saying today, that, there are no pumps and pipes, and people don't like that. Some people have dubbed me Jim Lee, the jet fuel guy. So to hear Bobby come out and say, it's the jet fuel and it has something to do with DARPA. There's literally been like heads exploding all over the internet since he said that. And my phone has been ringing off the hook nonstop with people going, can you believe that he's saying what you were saying was true all this time? So yeah, it's been a hell of a roller coaster ride. But
so just quickly, like pumps and pipes, what's the theory on pumps and pipes?
There are none.
The notion is there's a separate containers for
yeah. So there's two camps. There's Club Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. Unlike Dane Wigington, I will encourage everybody to go to geoengineeringwatch.org, watch his videos, read every article he's ever written. I encourage you to do that because I'm not a gatekeeper. And then what I'll tell you is he made a documentary. It's called The Deming. I suggest you watch it. And then after you're done with that, please come review my evidence. And what you're going to find very quickly is that there's really no evidence on the other side. There's a whole lot of speculation. The only evidence that he has at all is what he calls retrofitted nozzles on an Airbus A320. And by retrofitted, he means Somebody installed these pumps and pipes on the plane, and we have a photo, and that is proof that chemtrails come from separate containers pumping chemicals into the sky. Unfortunately for him, that was actually debunked in 2014, and he claimed that, oh, it's all made up. This debunk is fake. I've actually interviewed mechanics that work on the Airbus 320. They're like, no, that comes from the factory. Then, because I'm a hacker and you can't hide anything from me on the internet, I actually got the entire manual, for the mechanics manual for the Airbus 320. It's in there. It's a pylon drain. They actually have a patent for that pylon drain, which is still in service till 2033. So what a pylon drain is basically if there's a fuel leak or an oil leak inside the wing, there's these two pipes that stick out the back, and that's so that the fuel doesn't actually catch on fire and burn the damn plane out of the sky. That would be bad. I think we can all agree on that. So the Airbus 320 has these two little tubes that stick out of the top of the nacelle. That's what the pylon is. The nacelle is what holds the engine. So that little vertical, piece that holds the engine on. And a lot of people claim, well, that's proof that there's pumps and pipes, but in reality, they don't know what they're looking at. I've been through, right now I'm creating a new website just because I've kind of had it up to here with the nonsense and, the fear porn. There's like a whole chemtrail industrial complex of fear porn pushers that regurgitate the same videos and pictures over and over again. I'm up to like 20 different pumps and pipes, bottles, things like that. And I can show you where every single one of them originally came from and how they were perverted to become these secret pumps and pipes. So this is kind of unfortunate because they're preying on people that are genuinely concerned with what they're seeing overhead. I'm concerned about it. I hate it. Why do you think I went all the way to DC to testify about it? I didn't do it because I wanted to be famous. I did it because I was, pretty PO'd.
Yeah. And
so
versus like the fuel argument, or the fuel thesis is that it's just in the fuel. Is it like is it an additive to the fuel? Is it kind of combined up at scale? Because if it wasn't, and this all just happened, wouldn't like in a place like LAX or like Atlanta, like every plane taking off, there'd just be like a huge smoky mess?
So this is where you've got to like apply simple logic. Everybody, the simple logic is, well, if the chemtrail theory, if the chemtrail conspiracy is real, then it would take hundreds of thousands of people all keeping a secret. The pilot's got to switch. The mechanic's not going to talk about the funny nozzles he saw. Somebody's got to actually put the chemicals in there. There's this whole stupid idea about the coal fly ash. They're putting coal fly ash in the chemtrails. Well, where are they putting it? They're putting it in a secret container and they're pumping it out of planes. Okay. Well, I've actually, been to like Sumter Airport. We have an airport and we have an Air Force base, Shaw Air Force Base here in my hometown. I'm talking my stepfather, he was actually a 30-year chief master sergeant in the Air Force. His job specialty was fuel systems, engine corrosion specialist. And, and all the interviews I've done with probably 20, 30 different pilots, everything, you name it, I've dug down because I wanted to prove it was real. I wanted to be that guy to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. I found the smoking gun. And when I found the smoking gun, it was everybody saying they're finding aluminum and barium. And where did I find the aluminum and barium? In the jet fuel. It's just in there. Like any other crude oil, whenever you refine oil, the higher you refine it, the more impurities you get out of it. So you start out with heavy fuel oil, which is also known as bunker fuel, which is used in international shipping. High sulfur content, lots of metals in it. You keep going up the line, you get to diesel fuel, then you get to kerosene, then you get to gasoline. As you refine it What you're refining is you're refining out the impurities. So by the time you get to jet fuel, which is kerosene, which is Jet A, Jet A1, or in the military, it's JP8, NATO code F40, you're talking about anywhere from like 5,000 to 9,000 parts per billion aluminum. You know, somewhere around anywhere from like 9 to 30,000 parts per billion of calcium. Most people wouldn't even consider calcium's a metal, but it is. So to just put this into perspective, when a jet's flying through the air, a 747 at 80% thrust produces 100 quadrillion ultrafine particles per second. That's 100 with 15 zeros behind it. Now, in that are a lot of different chemicals. If you'd like, I could share a screen real quick and I'll show you a pretty cool thing.
Certainly. Like visual aids would be great.
I'm a very visual person, so like being a graphics artist, it's one of my things. And I think that this kind of will put it into perspective for everybody. So I have a new website that I'm coming out with here with soon, and it is at chemtrailfacts.com, which you can see here. When this site's done, it's going to be absolutely freaking insane, because everything that I'm going to tell you now is going to be on there and documented. For now, I still have my old, my only page I ever created about chemtrails, Cirrus Clouds Matter, the shady truth about artificial clouds. And on here, I made this graphic to give you an idea of what we're actually talking about. Now, when he says it's in the jet fuel, what he's referring to is all these red blocks are all the metals that are coming out of jet exhaust. The metals are what water sticks to. So when people say it's just condensation trails, it's just harmless water vapor, these people are crazy. Both sides are lying to you. This is what I've found to be true in everything that I've studied. You've got your debunkers, and then you got your true believers. And my grandma always said, there's two sides to every story, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. So what I found, and this is peer-reviewed science, I didn't make this stuff up. The detected metallic compounds were internally mixed with soot or black carbon particles. The most abundant among them were chromium, iron, molybdenum, sodium, calcium, and aluminum. Also found were vanadium, barium, cobalt, copper, nickel, lead, magnesium, manganese, silicon, titanium, zirconium. This is from chemical characterization of freshly emitted particulate matter from aircraft exhaust using single particle mass spectrometry. This is literally an airplane sitting on tarmac with the engine running, and they put a sniffer up its butt to go how much metals are coming out of it. Okay, very simple. So the metals are coming out of the jet exhaust when they burn the fuel. Now how is this geoengineering? Well, the Indian Space Organization flew up into the stratosphere, and though airborne, black carbon is known to dissipate and settle down in a few months under the influence of rain, blah, blah, blah. But the Indian Space Organization found evidence of black carbon particles existing up to 18 kilometers into the stratosphere, and that there are 10,000 of them per cubic centimeter. Given the shape and location of these particles, they argue it could only derive from emissions of aviation fuel. So no plane can fly at 60,000 feet. There are very few planes that can fly that high. And the reason this matters is when you look at what's actually going on, is there's two problems. We have the cloud problem, and then we have the sky getting whiter. And most people don't even understand what geoengineering is. Geoengineering is actually intentionally whitening the sky. So I made this infographic to kind of bring it home for everybody so that we could see the difference. Now, a lot of people throw these terms around: geoengineering, weather modification, chemtrails. And they use them interchangeably. They really don't know what the hell they're talking about. So we're going to use real terminology today. Weather modification. Things like ground-based cloud seeding generators. That's this right here is a picture of one. This is what's called an AHOGS tree. These are silver iodide flares. They're burned from the ground. They're for snowpack augmentation. They use wind that basically carries, it's called orographic lift. It carries that chemical up above a cloud and then makes artificial snow on top of the mountain. That's called snowpack augmentation. These are cloud ionizers right here, ionizers. They're also on the ground. Instead of using silver iodide or silver salt, they use negatively charged ions. So they actually use electricity to take pollution that's already in the sky to attract water to the pollution. Because what do we need for rainfall? What do we need to make a cloud? We need three things. We need water vapor, we need a cloud condensation nuclei or a cloud seed, and we need ionization, something to make the first two stick together. So the cloud ionizer provides the third, negatively charged ions, and uses cloud seeds, which are already there, like bacteria, molds, mineral dust, any kind of particle. These are called aerosols. And then once enough water gets stuck on that, it gets big enough, and guess what? Now it falls to the ground because it's too heavy to stay in the air. That's how rain happens. So cloud seeding is the idea of just basically adding more particles to hopefully induce more rain. They call that precipitation enhancement. All of these that I just described and lasers can do the same thing. Lasers provide ionization. They can shoot lasers into clouds to make them ionize, the water vapor that's there and the particulates. So it's really three things. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible without getting too dorky. Three things: cloud seed, water vapor, ionization. Those are the three factors for making clouds and making rain. The last one I have here is MCB. That's marine cloud brightening. That's actually a geoengineering technique where they take sea salt and they spray it into lower clouds around, typically like cumulus or marine stratocumulus. They whiten the clouds. And by whitening the clouds, they actually reflect light back into space. That's the idea of solar geoengineering. It's to reflect sunlight away from the planet to cool the planet. So the other one here, cloud seeding flares, you can see is 1,000 to 20,000 feet. These are literally like flares that are filled with silver iodide, but they're mostly like aluminum perchlorate. They're basically the same thing as, you remember the space shuttle with its solid rocket boosters? They're basically solid rocket boosters, the little flares with, some silver in it. So it's either silver iodide or calcium chloride or sodium chloride. Those are the three main types of chemicals that are used in weather modification. Now, this all happens in the troposphere. The troposphere is where all weather we see happens. Above that is the stratosphere. The stratosphere is where the ozone layer is. Everybody following along so far? I'm keeping this simple enough.
Yep.
Doing a great job, Jim.
The planes that we see leaving the white stripes in the sky are flying between 30,000 to 45,000 feet. Okay. So I like to call them plane farts, because the climate cult's really infatuated with cow farts. So I'm going to talk about plane farts today. Plane farts don't always make clouds. So when I just showed you all those metals and that black carbon that they said they found at 60,000 feet, that's jet exhaust going from 45,000 feet at the highest. That's private jets flying at 45,000 feet, up another 15,000 feet, damn near 3 miles. So how'd it get there? That's the real question. And why are people so focused on secret pumps and pipes when we can prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt? In fact, we know that the sky is getting whiter. This is the part that people don't understand about stratospheric aerosol injection. So geoengineering, what's called solar radiation management, SRM, there's a version of it called stratospheric aerosol injection. That's what the lady was asking at the Dr. Phil interview. when she first started. She's like, you've heard of stratospheric aerosol injection? And in reality, people, they use these terms, they really don't understand them. So this infographic summarizes in a nutshell everything that the chemtrail people are talking about, everything that the geoengineering people are talking about, because believe it or not, there's a lot of people who think SAI, planes making clouds, and cloud seeding are all geoengineering. And they're all chemtrails. But terminology matters, especially if we're going to be effective in changing what we're seeing. So understanding that planes make clouds, that is a form of weather modification. Why? It was beautiful blue, sunny sky. It's now cloudy. The weather changed, right? I mean, that's in your forecast every day. Is it going to be a bright sunny day? Is it going to be partly cloudy? Is it going to be overcast? Well, guess what? It's overcast damn near every day because we have on average around 100 to 150,000 flights per day. In 2004, there were 22 million flights globally. In 2024, there were 48 million flights globally. And I want you to let that sink in for a second, because people really don't have a grasp on how big this problem is. So, of course, RFK very famously responded to Bill Gates as a psycho on freaking X twice, saying, we're going to deal with the chemtrails. We're going to bring the perpetrators in, and all that. And I think that now that he's actually reviewed the evidence, he's realizing, oh, well, shit, there really aren't any pumps and pipes. Like, nobody is willing to go into bat with this. I'll do you one better. When David Keith and Ken Caldera and all the geoengineers, I could bring this stuff up, but enough with the graphic. When Bill Gates asked David Keith in 2010, how much money do you need? Because at the end of the day, money is the answer. Now, what is the question? The question is, can we cool the planet by mimicking volcanoes? And Bill Gates asked him, how much money? He said, well, about 25 billion a year. And he's like, that's doable. How many planes do you need? 14. So riddle me this. Why did David Keith in 2010, when he did the Aurora Flight Sciences study, come up with a cost projection of, about $25 billion? Actually, it was 25 million. I'm saying billion. It's 25 million. Over a 10-year period, it was like close to $20 billion, something like that. But this was to loft, I think, 10 megatons of sulfur per year into the stratosphere. And they wanted to do it with 747-400s. But they would have to be highly modified to get them up to 60 to 90,000 feet. Regardless, he said he could geoengineer the entire planet with 14 planes. So I'm reading that, and then 2 years later, he actually comes out with a paper. And I could show you, if y'all want to, I can share everything I'm about to show you, tell you. Stratospheric albedo injection cost analysis 2012, McClellan et al. 2012, for you science people out there that know how to find those things. And in that paper, he reiterated what they'd already done with the cost analysis and doubled down on, hey, we can do this with as few as 14 planes. So while the entire world is seeing planes flying overhead, leaving stripes in the sky and saying that it's all a secret government program with secret pumps and pipes and secret switches that nobody seems to be able to find, David Keith and every single geoengineer that's ever done a study on this or written a paper on it or said, here's how much it would cost, said we can do it with as few as 14 planes. So David Keith actually went to Harvard Solar Geoengineering program. He was part of the Frank Koich group. They did what's called SCOPEX, stands for Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment. He tried to launch a balloon with a big contraption on the bottom of it to test solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection. They first tried to launch their balloon in Tucson. The ETC group, geoengineeringmonitor.org, shout out to them. They shut down that test flight. Then he tried to go to Kiruna, Sweden at the Andoya Space Center, and they got 110 civil societies, NGOs, to sign a letter to basically Sweden to say geoengineering should be illegal. It should not be tested. Do not allow that guy to float his boat. So he was not allowed to launch his balloon. Shortly thereafter, David Keith quit. He said, screw it. I'm not going to try to do it anymore. And he left Harvard. He closed down the SCOPEX project. Frank Koich officially closed SCOPEX. And now David Keith is teaching young geoengineers, up and coming climate engineers at the University of Chicago. Why am I telling you all this? Because that's not the only experiment. You guys have recently heard about the UK dimming the sun experiments, right? It's like all the talk of the town right now. Everybody's having a hissy fit because the UK is going to fund geoengineering studies. Well, they're actually going to do the exact same thing that David Keith was going to do. While people are out there literally on X today, when the announcements came out, there were very prominent. The biggest one I know of was a guy who literally has 800,000 subs on YouTube. And he literally said, you know what? Go kill pilots, go shoot down planes, do whatever you can to stop this geoengineering project. In reality, the UK's ARIA project now, and I waited, I haven't made a video. So this is actually the first time I'm telling anybody this publicly. Now I actually have the real deal, information on what's going to happen. They're actually funding one stratospheric aerosol injection test. It's going to be a balloon and a little box dangling below it with a super soaker. It's going to squirt some calcium carbonate in the upper atmosphere. It is not going to look like white stripes over your house. They're going to fund 3 marine cloud brightening experiments, and they're going to fund one experiment where they pump water on top of a glacier to try to refreeze it to make it whiter. So in total, it's going to be 5 outdoor experiments. And all of this is to justify geoengineering governance, which is going to occur at the United Nations Environmental Assembly 7 in December of 2025. So take it, you don't trust me. I'm always right, but don't trust me. Do your own research. You're going to find out I'm right. And I'm also willing to bet this left testicle right now on this live stream. By the way, I've bet this many times. It's still here. That the ETC group, when they do attempt to float their little boat, when they attempt to do their SRM experiment, the ETC group will also shut that down. To date, only 2 geoengineering projects have actually made it to the air. Andrew Lockley's Satan project, you can't make this stuff up, stratospheric aerosol transport and nucleation, Satan. He threw a balloon in the air and it made it up there, blew up, and then fell to the ground. And then you have a couple marine cloud brightening experiments. The USS Hornet recently, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and silverlining.ngo. That's their website and their name. Kelly Wasner on the USS Hornet, they set up a marine cloud brightening sea salt sprayer in San Francisco Bay, and the town freaked out because they didn't tell anybody, just like Andrew Lockley didn't tell anybody. So they're keeping this all hush hush because they saw David Keith get his ass kicked for being public about geoengineering. I want to test this balloon. I want to inject these chemicals and see how much sunlight I can block, because I'm trying to make pretend volcanoes here, people. I'm trying to save humanity. Well, after David Keith quit, all of the other geoengineers took that as a sign. You know what? Maybe being open and transparent with the public is not the smartest way to go about doing this science, because clearly the public doesn't want this. So the irony of all this is all of the hate and contempt built up by the chemtrail community over an apparent, secret government program for geoengineering, they don't even realize that the plans behind the scenes, the people who are actually involved in trying to legalize geoengineering this December, what they're planning on is making the sky white. They're not planning on making clouds. Clouds are very temporary. The clouds that planes make, they tend to last anywhere from 30 minutes up to 4 hours, 5 hours. If you're lucky, 8. Okay. So when planes make contrails that turn into cirrus clouds can persist up to 8 hours. Now, that sucks. I don't like it, but it's predictable. In fact, the last video I made on my YouTube channel was called I Can Predict Chemtrails. If you'd like, I can give you the chemtrail prediction for tomorrow live on this show right now. You got a question about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is like the whites. This is
Yeah.
the kind of the white cloudiest that we see.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean, and that's pretty much every day, especially if you
Early
live
in the morning, and it's like all of a sudden. See, this one specifically like gave me questions though, because it was like 8 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
and they were all like kind of spread out equally, and there's like a start spot to this whole line, and then
Yeah.
an end spot, and you can see there's other ones that kind of continue. So it seems like they're like, you know, there's organization to this spraying, let's say, if you want
Yeah.
to call it that, or towards like, you know, it seems like it's coordinated and organized, because there's literally 10 lines all the same, like starting the same spot, and in the very early morning it's easy to see it, but by 10 o'clock it's all just fucking, it's like, you know, you've just got a big white like moving. I feel like they're sinking blobs too, like they just fall down to earth.
Yeah. Well, I can show you what's going on real quick. Watch this.
Okay.
I'm a magician. So here's your explanation right now. I just shared screen.
Okay. Perfect. Hold on, let me remove mine. Yeah, this. Ah.
So this is what's called a contrail forming region. In the sky, there's actually big, you could call it like a lake. Imagine a pond. It's invisible. You cannot see it. Now, when a plane flies into that contrail forming region, that's why there's a distinct line where the contrails start and stop. I will prove this to you right now. So I'm going to go to my heads up display, and I'm going to start with null school. So when we look at null school, and I'm looking at 250 hectopascals, which is 250 millibars, which is about 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet ish. These blue areas, those are the contrail forming regions. Why do I know that? Because if I click here, you can see, and I'll make this bigger, it says 14% relative humidity at flight altitude. But right here, it's 99% relative humidity. Any plane that flies from here and it hits that edge, suddenly it's going to make a cloud. The exact same metal particles that I showed you earlier, they're coming out of the plane the entire time. The only difference is when they ran into this water patch, see how there's a patchy here and a patchy there? They could literally make a line as it flies through here, and then no line, and then a line as it flies through here, and then no line. And that's the way it can happen, because this is 54%. Right here, we're talking 82%. That's 100% practically. So I'm going to use a different tool to show you this. So this is how I actually can predict with pretty much certainty. I can go like this and go, well, what's it going to look like tomorrow? And bam, and bam. And
Yeah, what's it
bam.
gonna look like in tomorrow in Florida? Like I'm here in Southwest Florida.
All right, so
west side of Florida.
So this is the 15th at 2200 local. So I don't have it on. You can switch it to UTC, but at 2200 local. So that's tomorrow afternoon. you're going to have another very large blue area come through. But see right here, if you're in southern Florida, if you're down here near Key West, probably going to be okay. But if you just back it up one hair, so let's say tomorrow morning, this is 1400 local, should be nice and clear.
Like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is going to be nice and clear. We got a clear day tomorrow, guys. The forecast is looking clear.
Just so you know, I was in and I won't out them, but in a signal group with a bunch of people who are very close to Bobby Kennedy, and they had just passed the bill down in Florida banning geoengineering. And then I predicted their chemtrails for the next week. And they were floored because they thought that they had just banned the geoengineering. We banned the geoengineering. It's going to go away.
They banned them in Tennessee too. And then
that didn't work out for Tennessee too well either. I mean, they're getting nailed right now. So the other tool I have, and I'll just go right here, and
did they technically just ban jet fuel in Tennessee and Florida?
They could try. I don't know how well that would work for them. But if you look at Florida right now, if I click here, it's going to show you this. Short contrails possible from 46,000 feet down to 42,000 feet. Minimal contrails may be seen below that. There are no chemtrails in Florida as we speak, as we're live right now. Okay. Now you can do this all across America. So anywhere you see right now, I'm looking at high clouds, I have pressure on, and I have the radiosonde data to boot. So if I look over here where clearly there's a lot of high, thin cirrus clouds, and I click on that, what do I see? I see short contrails possible from 45 to 44,000 feet, longer contrails possible, 43,000 feet, long, possibly persistent. These are what everybody calls chemtrails, from 42,000 all the way to 36,000 feet. However, 35 to 33,000 feet, longer contrails possible. So this is why people go, well, how come I see two planes flying in the same space?
Right.
And one's leaving a chemtrail and one's not. Well, check this out. I'm going to click right here. Look, all the way down. Long, possibly persistent. Persistent means, and this is also one thing that I really hate about the terminology. I don't like the term persistent contrail, because once a contrail fans out, it is no longer a contrail. It is a cirrus cloud. That's why I came up with the hashtag cirrus clouds matter. So once a contrail persists, it turns into a cirrus cloud, and that cirrus cloud blocks out the sun. That's what you're actually seeing. So if you keep clicking around on this bad boy, you're going to see some really weird ones, like eventually where very close together, like here's literally a 2,000 foot difference where you got persistent contrails, chemtrails, and then you got contrails right next to it. Okay. So if you're just 1,000 feet higher, it's not going to make a cloud that sticks around, and people can't understand that. Now, where does this information come from? Am I just making this shit up? Am I pulling your PUD? No, because this actually comes from the European model, but you can actually go in and do this the hard way, which is the way it's been done since World War II, by looking at what's called radiosonde data. So with radiosonde data, you can actually look at what's called a skew T-plot. These are where they actually throw a air balloon into the sky. I had a really cool website for that. Let's see, Sonde. Where's it at? The Sonde tracker. Well, while I'm looking for that, oh, there it is. This is really neat. Just I dork out on this kind of stuff. But basically, when they're doing these balloons, you can actually see where the balloons are, and then there's these cars. These are actually the cars that have to go chase the balloons down after they get up to a certain altitude. They pop, and then the radiosonde comes crashing down to the ground. So you can actually follow the chase car that goes to pick these weather balloons up. I think it's hilarious. Well, anyway, as they're going up in the altitude into the air, they track two things. They track the red line is temperature, and the blue line is the relative humidity. The difference between the two is known as the dew point depression. Okay. So negative 42 degrees Celsius, negative 45 degrees Celsius on the relative humidity. That's a dew point depression of negative 3 degrees. All right. Anything under a 5, you're going to get a persistent contrail. You're going to have a contrail turn into a chemtrail, according to what, most people's definition is. So when you actually look at this, you can tell at any given time, just by looking at these numbers, a lot of things. Also, once you see this temperature start to go up, you realize you've now hit the tropopause. Just as a quick reminder, where did I put it? Apparently I closed that image out when I brought up the snipping tool. But the tropopause is the dividing line between the stratosphere and the troposphere.
Mm-hmm.
Clouds do not form in the stratosphere because it's drier and it's hotter. It actually gets warmer once you hit the stratosphere. So that's another reason why if they're going to geoengineer, they want to do it higher. They want to do it as high in the stratosphere as possible, because if you put these chemicals, and I can just go here.
And when you say they're fanning out, like, are they falling or are they just like staying at the same height? Because I feel like they fall.
Well, let's be realistic about it. I wrote this article, how to banning chemtrails, how to win. And that's where why I put this picture out there. So when you get across this line here, let's pretend in a world that all these planes actually have pumps and pipes and they're pumping chemicals in there to do geoengineering. Here's the problem with that. If you do that at 45, right here at about 39,000 feet, roughly, and this varies from the equator to the North Pole. I don't want to get too technical, so we'll just stick with 39,000 feet. Okay. If you did that right there, those chemicals would be in the air for about anywhere from a day. It could be as little as a couple of hours, depending on how turbulent the air is, because in the troposphere, we have a lot of turbulence. That's, you guys have ever flown, you've experienced turbulence, right? Bum, 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 bum. Everybody, please put your seatbelt on. We're experiencing turbulence. That's air mixing up and down the column. That doesn't happen in the stratosphere. It's really calm. So anything below this line, you got 2 weeks max before that's going to rain out and hit the ground. For every 10,000 feet you go up, you can add probably 3 months to that. At the altitude of 60 to 90,000 feet, at 90,000 feet, if they did what David Keith and Bill Gates and all of them want to do, they want to dump their chemicals at the equator at 90,000 feet, because it would last for 2 to 4 years before it made it to the ground. So it's more bang for their buck. They have to first get it up there, and then they have to sustain the ability to block out sunlight. So the higher you can loft it, the longer it stays. That's called its residence time. So if you're going to whiten the sky to mimic volcanoes, you want to do it as high as possible. Planes are already doing this, because when they're flying at 42,000 feet and they're getting right above that line, the jet exhaust is being carried up by what's called photophoretic levitation. Sometimes it's caused by orographic lift, convection. I don't want to get too nerdy on this, but the bottom line is the jet exhaust, which is invisible, which does not make a cloud, is going up to 60,000 feet anyway. So that's what's whitening the sky. That's why when you look at your horizon and you see it looks like milk. Have you guys ever experienced this? You've seen it?
Yeah.
It's blue directly overhead, but you look over to the horizon, it's more white.
Mm-hmm.
And on some days it's white directly overhead, even though there's no clouds whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you see like the sundog, where you get the halo all the way around the sun.
Yep.
The sun seems more white than it used to as I was a child. The sun used to be bright yellow, orange. Now you only really get to see that at sunset or sunrise. It's super bright white. That's because all of diffraction, refraction, diffusion of all of these particles that are building up in the stratosphere, because we have 45 million flights per year. What does that look like? It looks like this. Yeah, I'm not disabling my ad blocker.
Good man.
This is what it looks like right now as we're live.
Barrel of monkeys.
So
Those are all planes in the air?
At this moment, while we're live, right now, it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast in Sumter, South Carolina. This is 10 p.m. This is the North Atlantic corridor, and damn near every one of these planes is currently flying in the stratosphere. You go look at their flight, their altitude, 39,000 feet. As you get higher up in altitude, what you'll realize is that the tropopause is actually lower. So the stratosphere is lower the further you go up in latitude. So if I go and I check, and I'll do that real quick. Yes, I was trolling your website earlier.
Smart man.
I'll always do your research. But if I go to the UI, actually, I'm not going to go to the UI. That's all the radio signs worldwide. So I can check anywhere in the world any given time. You just click on that, and it'll give you all the numbers. You know, like you can go through these numbers and actually see what the entire column, pressure, height, temperature, dew point depression, you know, all that stuff. But we're not going to do that. I'm just going to go to the other one, because it will actually show you. It gives you a number for the tropopause. I swear, College of DuPage, do not screw around with me. I have a gigabyte per second. What the hell is taking you so long? I have fiber optic. We spoiled around here. So down here in Key West, if I click on this, what we can see is I go to product, and I want to go to sounding text. And I can scroll right down to here. And what do I see? This TRP. You guys see that number right there? TRP.
Tropopause.
That is the tropopause, correct. So if I just bring up a calculator real quick, because this is in meters, I just basically throw that number in there, and I go times 3.3. And currently the tropopause is at 48,618 feet. That's pretty high. That's higher than most private jets fly around 43 to 45,000 feet. So the tropopause is above that. Now, if we go back, and I just go back to their map, go to station map, and I'm going to click up here at the highest one I can find. And we go right back down, and we look at the same number. We can see that the tropopause here is 13,000 meters. See the difference already? So put that in there, times 3.3 and 43,000 feet. So at any given time, if I check all over the US, you'll see that it's at different places at different times. One time we were looking right here at this one in California, and the tropopause was all the way down at 25,000 feet. Look, it's even lower. It's lower than all the way up in Maine, in California, which is crazy.
And sorry, just the tropopause again is
it's the dividing line between the troposphere and the stratosphere.
Okay.
So
and
if
a jet is flying above it,
it's
not going to make a cloud.
High pressure or low pressure systems as well. Is that would?
Yeah, so it can be affected by many different factors, but yeah, high pressure can, especially high pressure in the stratosphere, can push down the troposphere. It's also affected by whether it's day or nighttime. There's many different factors, but when you actually start to get into these numbers, it makes things really interesting, because you start to see all kind of anomalies. Now, look, now we're at 37,000 feet, meaning any plane that's flying above that is not going to leave a contrail.
It's not going to leave a contrail, but it is going to leave those heavy metal particles in the atmosphere, and potentially for a very long time, because of the photophoretic effect carrying them even higher.
Exactly. And that's the part that people don't understand about the difference between geoengineering, which is stratospheric aerosol injection. If you don't know where the stratosphere is, then you don't know if particles are getting injected into it, right? This is how you can tell. You can literally go and look, what is the height of the tropopause? If I go back over to on windy.com and I look at that sounding plot from San Jose, you probably can see it. Oh yeah, you can right there. Look at that. I just said, what was the calculator? 37,342 feet. Look at that. Is that magic? Am I a magician? You can see it gets hotter and it gets drier the second you hit that line. Does everybody see what I'm seeing? Do you guys understand what I'm explaining?
Yeah. And I want to make sure we understand, and everyone at home understands, when they're flying above that line and it's not making a cloud, but those particles are still ending up in the stratosphere. In fact, for a much longer time, it's still having an albedo effect. It's still
that is exactly right.
Yeah,
that is exactly right.
And so this is an interesting thing with the chemtrail thing is people look up, they see the clouds, they see the chemtrails or the cirrus clouds, and they go, oh no, and then they don't see them and they think, okay,
it's a no spray day. That's what they'll refer to it as.
Sure.
So that's
and they associate it with like that's better.
Yeah,
but it's not necessarily better. It just means that the effect is longer.
So if you look at this right now, it'll say right here at 42,000 all the way down to 36,000 feet, short contrails may be possible. Minimal contrails may be seen. And this is just, I'm clicking in the general area around San Jose, and the contrail finder is saying pretty much the same thing, that you should not be seeing any long-lived contrails in this area. If you click right out here where the high cirrus is, long, possibly persistent because of this huge front that's coming in.
So at these points in time, the pumps and pipes people are breathing an unearned sigh of relief. And what you're saying, even worse here, is that not only is it not that if you don't see a cloud, they're not spraying, it's that it's always spraying because it's coming out of the jet fuel. So any plane is contributing.
Right. Since I got it up, I'll drive on past this. Continue to cite. I'm not scared of you. The dude deleted his page. Oh my God. I just had a conversation with this guy and he must have been so shamed he took it down.
Oh man, you got
That's what archive.org is for, bitches.
Let's go.
I have a question.
Sure.
So we'll take a little tangent here for a second. When did they figure this out and who figured it out? And you mentioned Bill Gates. Did he somehow get involved with this? Like he's involved with vaccines and is trying to.
Oh yeah, Bill Gates is in. So here, now I'm going to do a 180. They are trying to geoengineer with contrails. That's the irony of all this. So I wrote an article on this. It's on the ClimateViewer report, and it's contrail geoengineering. And it's right here. How Bill Gates is actually trying to use contrails to geoengineer. And you can't make this stuff up. I was on Del Bigtree's The High Wire. I told him all how it worked. And this is it right here. Cooling contrails, mitigating the climate impact of non-CO2 emissions. This is the key word for chemtrails in the climate cult world. Okay. Non-CO2 emissions equals black carbon, all the metals, and clouds created by planes. So in this presentation, this is the Greener by Design Contrail Avoidance Group. And they're actually trying to figure out how to, design a climate-friendly flying system, because contrail cirrus, as I said, it's cirrus clouds. They call it contrail cirrus or contrail induced cirrus. There are a lot of terms for this, but their conclusions were, hey, you know what? We should maybe geoengineer. That would be a great idea. And I could just go back to the picture. I thought it would be easier to find it in here. It's kind of a long thing. I'll see it immediately. Hold on. Just let me scan real fast. There it is. All right. So cooling contrails controversy. And what they said was solar geoengineering on the horizon on the next slide. We can avoid warming contrails by flying through the contrail forming region very quickly. And then if it's going to make persistent contrails up here, we can avoid them by flying under them. See that? Avoid warming contrails, because if you make cirrus clouds at night, they trap heat. But then they said, how about we create cooling contrails by intentionally flying into ice supersaturated regions? Now, I haven't used that term yet, but an ice supersaturated region is a special contrail forming region where a lot of ice is produced, because cirrus clouds are ice and they form predominantly on the metals in jet exhaust. So what did they say? Contrail avoidance group at first meeting split over forming cooling contrails. Is this geoengineering? Yes, asshole. It is geoengineering. If you intentionally make clouds by intentionally flying into areas where you're going to intentionally make clouds from jet exhaust, that's geoengineering too. It's not the ideal geoengineering. It's not the kind that you would think of where they do stratospheric aerosol injection, but it's geoengineering.
And the difference between these two here is, like, avoiding the warming ones means don't do this at night. Creating the cooling ones means do this during the day.
Yeah. So
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah. So Bill Gates has this website called contrails.org. I'll just go ahead and skip to that right now. So contrails.org. I've been telling people this for 15 years, and literally they finally are like, screw it. We might as well admit to it and make a damn website just to prove that, yeah, Jim's right. So what I said originally was this, and I'm going to go back to this. The very first Substack article I wrote, because I'm kind of contrarian and I like to start a fight. So of course I wrote geoengineering with contrails, and this was February 11th, 2024, my first Substack article. Because I wanted to be kind of a dick about it. Ulrich Schumann in 2010, he said, basically, we want less soot emissions, less warming, more cooling contrails, predictable for operational planning. Okay. Ulrich Schumann is the leading scientist on the planet on contrail formation. So and how's he going to actually do this predictable for operational planning? He created something called the COSIP, the Contrail Cirrus Simulation and Prediction Tool. So with this tool, he could predict when they're going to make, cirrus clouds, and are they going to be warming cirrus clouds, or are they going to have a cooling effect? Because this part matters for geoengineering. So then I interviewed Dr. Rangasai Halthori, who was testing biofuels for contrail control. And he said this. I said, what do you think Ulrich Schumann meant when he said less warming, more cooling contrails? And he said, not sure what he meant by in this context. Lie. I sent him all of the references in an email before he actually filled out the citizen response to. This is Dr. Rangasai Halthori from the Federal Aviation Administration's Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative. I know he read the damn, all the references before answering these questions. But regardless, he said the quiet part out loud. Contrails during the day cause cooling because they were reflecting of sunlight back into space. During night, they trap infrared heat, causing heating. I already knew all this. So it's a balance between the two time intervals. We would like to have more contrail-induced cirrus clouds during the day and none during the night. Okay? So now I got two people saying the same thing. We want clouds by day, none by night. We want more cooling, less warming contrails. Well, why does that matter? It kind of matters because at the end of the day, that's what these pricks want to do. They realize that the heat trapping effect at night is what they're trying to get away from. So what do? They have this contrail map, and it literally now shows you in real time where the cooling contrails are and the warming contrails. And I'm not talking about, chemtrail people definition of contrails. They're only talking about persistent contrails. So this map actually shows in real time the flights and whether they're warming or cooling. What you're going to notice is as the sun comes up, they start to turn blue again, but they don't all turn blue. I mean, you'll see that over here too. So as the sun comes up, some of them will turn blue, but the minute you hit nighttime, they are all red. They're all orange. They're warming at night. So you can just go back through the whole damn day and look and see where they're formed, whether they're warming or cooling. And this is this is geoengineering. This is the way they're doing it. People
Has that insight been operationalized? Like you said, that guy was the leading scientist on this topic, and he's saying we should do it this way. Are like airlines operating under this principle now?
So here's the rub. Let me see if I have the actual link. I do have the link, but it's in this one, and I don't want to go through all that right now. So there's a company called Satavia, and they actually are already doing, and I'll Google it. Satavia provides contrail provision. Look at that. That just totally just deleted itself. I swear, every time I cover anything on my YouTube channel, it immediately gets deleted from the internet, like almost immediately. Here's the link. UK green aerospace company Satavia provides contrail prevention capability for KLM Sustainable Flight Challenge, and they literally have KLM. They literally have like an in the cockpit that shows the pilot, hey, you're about to fly into an ice supersaturated region. So to show you what an ISSR is, I'll show you one real quick. So if I go here and it says long, possibly persistent. Why is it called persistent? Well, the reason why is because if you scroll down here and you look at the numbers, right here, you're going to see contrail persistence, check, 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 check. This is what's called an ice supersaturated region. It's greater than 60% relative humidity with colder than negative 45 degrees Celsius and a dew point depression of 4 degrees. So if you meet those three categories, you are in an ice supersaturated region. You're going to create persistent contrails that make cirrus clouds that block out the sun.
So for KLM Airlines now, during the day, go for it. At night, avoid these regions.
You're right. So
or avoid those.
This is in 2022 now. And the original article, which I doubt they have it here now. Yeah. They may have something on here. Of course, the minute you go to their new website, I don't want your freaking cookies. How about that? Satavia Contrail Management. I haven't even seen this. This is the first time I've seen this because they've updated their website. But basically, look. Oh, what is that? Carbon Credit Solutions. Why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, what they're really trying to do is this. Because the airline industry emits a bunch of CO2, and the climate cult, you know how they hate CO2. They want to monetize it. The airline industry also creates clouds. Some of them are warming up the planet, according to the scientists. I don't really believe that. There's actually a whole lot of evidence that that's not actually the case, but regardless, that's what they believe, so they're going to monetize it. So here's the rub. They can claim that if we create cooling contrails and we don't create warming contrails, we can get carbon credits and carbon offsets. Okay? So the carbon offset means, yeah, CO2 comes out of our jet engines, but we offset our warming of our CO2 by creating cooling contrails that fan out and block the sun during the day, clouds by day, none during the night.
Yep, and we avoid doing it at night.
Yeah. Well,
then we've got an economic model.
There's also just definitely like a corrupt trust me bro to this racket. You sign up with this GE aerospace business, you're gonna get your climate credits.
So that right here under contrail management, they may actually have a picture of there's the end. Yep, Decision X product suite that goes right in the cockpit, incentivizing action with their certified mitigation outcome units. Like, dude, this is all a freaking money scam. Like, people are looking for a chemtrail conspiracy. The truth is always crazier than fiction. And at the end of the day, go ahead.
How's this going to backfire on us? Does it have anything to do with the double solar minimum coming and or a polar shift? Could all of this be like in 15 years, like, oh yeah, we screwed up and we're all looking at Bill Gates's like,
yes,
okay,
big time. Evil. So my other website, which we haven't even really talked about weather modification, geoengineering, or HARP in detail. I have my website, weathermodificationhistory.com. You can go through this sucker and literally see over 849 newspapers starting in the 1800s to present on the entire history of weather control, like producing rain with X-rays in 1919. You can go through the timeline of events, like when I told you about David Key's ScopeX. Here's the ScopeX balloon. Each one of these has, MLA formatted references along with a photo gallery. This is what a geoengineering research program looks like. It looks like a balloon with a box and it's a spray thing. Okay. This is what they're going to be doing in the UK. It's going to look just like that.
It's like the Paw Patrol movie.
I mean, literally it was called the Strato Cruiser. Okay. But that's what it's going to look like. And this is, what their, climate intervention. It's geoengineering, climate engineering, climate intervention. They all mean the same thing. They always like to play with the words. The point I was going to make, though, is that when you really look at what these fools are up to, I have these frequently asked question pages. I also have all these patents. So if anybody wants to see geoengineering and weather modification patents, I have literally 1,181 patents. So you can just come here and you can type in hurricane and it'll sort through them, and you can click on that and see all the different patents. Undersea tunnel system, like what the hell is that? And all of these are actual patents you can click, and this is worldwide too. So this is a Taiwanese patent, this is a world patent. I don't just have US patents now. There's a lot. But if you go to the geoengineering page right here, and I have this thing right here on Earth radiation management. And this is called a cirrus cloud climate dial. So what you actually see is this. Ulrich Schumann, less warming, more cooling contrails. Rangasai Althori, more contrail-induced cirrus clouds during the day, none during the night. How do they actually want to pull this off? Through contrail avoidance. And the other one is a geoengineering technique called cirrus cloud thinning. Cirrus cloud thinning was discussed by Ulrich. Originally, it was Trude Storyevno in 2015. Ulrich Lohmann and Blas Gasparini 2017. A cirrus cloud climate dial. Everything I'm saying, you can actually go read yourself. Like I heard you guys at the beginning saying people who have stuff memorized. I've memorized everything I've read for the last 20 years. Like I could do this without reading any of these references. I'm just bringing them up for visual aids. But how could they do the part where they said get rid of the clouds at night? This can be achieved if seeding is limited to high latitude winters or nighttime seeding. So they can actually go up and fly above the clouds and sprinkle bismuth triiodide on the cirrus clouds and melt the ice clouds away. This is a geoengineering proposal called cirrus cloud thinning, a cirrus cloud climate dial, a way to control the temperature of the planet by melting the chemtrails away at night. You cannot make this stuff up. So this is it in a nutshell. What everybody calls solar radiation management or geoengineering, everybody knows that term, but nobody knows. Nobody's ever said, you've never heard this on frickin' Alex Jones or Redacted or anywhere else. This is exclusive for you guys, is Earth radiation management. That's what cirrus cloud thinning is. It's about outgoing long wave radiation, infrared radiation, being able to escape to space at night so that the planet cools down. What does this tell us about CO2? It tells us that there really aren't very many greenhouse gases. It's funny because the more they double, the more CO2 you get, the less of a warming effect it has. In reality, the greenhouse is the cirrus clouds. The greenhouse is the blanket that's being created above us that's trapping heat at the ground. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And as a Boy Scout, when I was 15 years old, I knew that if I was going to bed in the middle of the winter and it was cloudy outside, it wasn't going to be as cold that night. But if I could see the stars, like right as the sunset, I knew we were going to freeze our ass off in those tents. It was just common knowledge to a 15-year-old who knew nothing about weather or climate or anything. Most people inherently know this. So that's how it works. And, you know, behind the scenes, you go and you look at this and it says copyright breakthrough energy. Well, who's breakthrough energy and why does it matter? Well, you know, I started looking into it, and the program that's running this, and this is the source code for it. It says right there, cosip.py, and you go to their GitHub tree, and you can see that this literally is the Contrail Cirrus prediction tool created by Ulrich Schumann in 2010. That's what Bill Gates is using right now. So the guy who said less warming, more cooling contrails, predictable for operational planning, at the ICAO colloquium on aviation climate change in 2010, they're running his Python scripts on the map that you're looking at right now. So this is not a coincidence. Oh, and yeah, that guy, the one who said that. And who's oh, I'm on the, no, this is it. So who's Breakthrough Energy? Bill Gates' little contrail control company. Well, it's spearheaded by these fools: Jeff Bezos, Michael Bloomberg, Richard Branson, George Soros, Mark Zuckerberg. These are the investors in Breakthrough Energy. Who's their chief scientist? Ken Caldera. Yeah. Their chief scientist is Ken Caldera. You cannot make this shit up.
And who's Ken Caldera?
Ken Caldera is one of the dirty duo, and I'll show them to you right now.
With
So
David Keith, right?
Yeah, this is for those who don't know these names at home. You will now. That's David Keith and Ken Caldera. Originally, David Keith and Ken Caldera were the dispersers of Bill Gates' FISER money. So when Bill Gates decided to fund geoengineering initially, he had the Fund for Innovative Climate Engineering Research, FISER. And these two fools were the ones that were basically having other scientists come to them and beg them for money. If you wanted Bill Gates money, you had to talk to one of these two guys. Ben Kravitz, probably the top modeler of geoengineering effects under the Geoengineering Model Intercomparison Project. Alan Robach, love him and hate him same time, because he's actually came up with the best list of reasons not to geoengineer anybody's ever put together. So who funds this crap? This is my original one from like 2014. The National Science Foundation is the largest funder of geoengineering. So when Trump pulled the plug on the USGCRP, Global Climate Change Research Program, which is funded by the National Science Foundation, it was a good shot, but if you're not dealing with the National Science Foundation, that's why all our taxpayer money ends up funding geoengineering research. Right above it, Fund for Innovative Climate and Energy Research, FISER, that's Bill Gates. And then there's NASA, the European Commission, yada, yada. And these are the top SRM authors. This was in 2014. Ken Caldera, Alan Robach, Ben Kravitz, Peter Irvine, David Keith. Now, you jump to today, it's grown kind of exponentially. I mean, this is quite a lot, a much bigger scheme going on here. Now, let me see if I can just open this in another window so we can make.
What did these guys say about you, Jim?
Oh, they love me. They love me. Yeah, they love to hate me. So,
why do they hate you?
Well, I mean, I went and I interviewed a bunch of them. I went to the 21st conference on planet inadvertent weather modification this was in 2018 at the American Meteorological Society. And I interviewed Daniel Rosenfeld from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, cloud seeding guy, likes to steer hurricanes. Just going to leave it at that. Dr. William Cotton, part of project.
Hold on. You can steer hurricanes?
Couldn't get past that one.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of dove headfirst into chemtrails, didn't get into all the cool stuff that I normally talk about, but
we are gonna have you back. You know that, right?
I mean, it's a lot of fun stuff to talk about, but just to throw this out here real quick. Open Philanthropy. This is the Forum for Climate Engineering Assessment. This is Bill Gates with Gates Venture. There's Pfizer funding marine cloud brightening, which is the Silver Lining Project, which I mentioned earlier was Kelly Wasner and their group that, Pacific Northwest National Labs, Cornell, Climate Engineering, Atkinson Fund, National Science Foundation with their geoengineering model intercomparison program, Harvard Solar Geoengineering Research Program, Decimals, which used to be Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, is now degrees.ngo. For some reason, that one's not on here. It's more about governance than that. Open Societies Foundation, sound like George Soros to you? So when you look at who's funding geoengineering, a lot of people are like, oh, but they canceled USAID and the chemtrails went away. They shut down the geoengineering program. I'm like laughing my balls off and crying at the same time because people still do not have a clue. And they're being intentionally duped by these hucksters and grifters in the chemtrail community. And the reason why I have such a beef with the chemtards, sorry, I said I wasn't going to say that today. Jesus, forgive me. I'm sorry.
You made it an hour and a half.
I got an hour and a half without saying chemtard, but I can't not say it because at the end of the day, I mean this shit when I say it, how chemtrails are ruining activism. Still, it's one of the most popular articles. I'm saying it for real because at the end of the day, people are so infatuated with hunting down pumps and pipes and secret programs, talk about Morgellons, nanobots, and all it's part of the transhumanist agenda, man, and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, this December, they're literally going to try to legalize geoengineering on a worldwide basis. Meanwhile, the public is completely clueless about all of that. So this is where I get really pissed off about it.
Right. And the people that actually care about it are so off base on what it is that they sound stupid, and it makes it harder to make a good point about any of it.
And I think that it's intentional.
That's why the contrail people actually like the chemtards doing all their stuff because it creates.
But at the same time, like at this point, I have more chemtrail debunkers rooting for me, which is like really freaking weird. Like they hated my guts for years because they're like, Jim, you don't even believe in chemtrails. Why do you keep using the word chemtrails? And I'm like, because if I don't reach out to these people and wake them and shake them up, geoengineering will get legalized. You understand that right now that they're fighting a straw man. They don't even understand Bill Gates and company are literally laughing in your face and trying to make a geoengineering carbon credit transfer scheme out of contrails. But but my chemtrails, it's really frustrating for me.
You brought up money. Is it a money thing, or is there some other delusions? Is there ulterior motives?
Well, Billy, you asked the question, so I'm going to answer it. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear this if I play it. Well, tell me if you guys can hear this.
No, you have to share your tab and not your whole screen if you want if you want the sound to come across.
Here, I'm gonna throw you a link in chat, and I want you to play this clip.
Sure.
Yeah, and just real quick, I just want to say, Jim, you are my kind of activist, man, because you're diving into a topic that's traditionally super controversial and quickly discarded by most folks. And recognizing the nuance, recognizing it is both simpler and scarier than the people who are alarmed about it think.
Yeah.
And then bringing the real facts, trying to reach out to the people who actually care but are way off base. But man, you're just so backed up with data. You've got the whole web mapped out. You've got the research. You got the quotes. You know everyone in the space. I mean, you're really just my kind of guy, man.
I appreciate that.
Are we ready?
Buckle your seatbelts, kids. This is about to get ugly. This is David Keith. David Keith, that's Alan Robach right there. And David Keith is sitting at the end.
Here we go.
Geoengineering.
Can I leap in? This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or if there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefits of human mortality would be so that you would save many, many more people than that. But the fact that you would save more people than you kill doesn't mean there's no moral impact of making a decision that directly kills people. And I think that we who talk about this have a duty to be clear-eyed about the direct risks involved in doing it.
All right, you can stop it there.
I actually think one of the most important questions we heard
absurd.
from this
You can pause that
about
now.
acute,
You can
about
stop it,
acute triggers.
So
Okay, that's demonic, basically.
he's making the Robert Oppenheimer argument. It is the exact same delusional hubris that Robert Oppenheimer used when he said, in building the bomb, it was our hope that we would save more lives than we would take.
You know, it's interesting, man, because like obviously we are probably on the other side of his opinion that this is even a good idea to begin with. So we're not really going to be into it. However, there's also this idea of like heavy is the head that wears the crown, or like the general's conundrum or whatnot.
Yeah.
That no matter what you do, some people are going to get hurt. What is the most beneficial, least painful decision to make? Now, it doesn't sound like he should be in that position, and it doesn't sound like his position is a good one to begin with. But I can't just throw it out entirely. Even he doesn't throw it out entirely. He does fully recognize the ethical consequences. We just think he's wrong about where
he says that
he says, right.
He says it,
Fair,
and then chuckles while saying it. I could play you even scarier clips of some.
I believe you. I believe you.
Much scarier clips of Ken Caldera literally going, well, will people put up with geoengineering? Well, it's amazing what the American population will put up with. They didn't mind interring a whole bunch of Japanese citizens, and that was totally fine. And he goes on to make other the more analogies he makes, the worse his argument sounds.
Yeah, I believe it.
But I really want to address what Billy asked earlier, and he asked about the grand solar minimum that we're coming up to.
Yeah, can this bite us in the ass?
So could this bite us in the ass? I have a great little diagram here for you, and this is what's called the double catastrophe scenario. This was written by Seth Baum, I think 2012, 2013. I was close. Anyway, so we have climate change. We do stratospheric aerosol injection started. But then we have intermittency. What does intermittency mean? It means that we don't keep it up. We don't keep killing people like David Keith says by putting millions of tons of sulfur into the stratosphere. Oh, by the way, news flash to all the chemtards. I've already broken the ice on that where that window's been shattered. So geoengineers like David Keith, the guy who just said he's going to kill tens of thousands of people, they have only ever talked about 5 chemicals. sulfur, calcium, aluminum, titanium, and diamond dust. No mention of barium, doesn't even get an honorable mention. No strontium, no bromium, whatever the hell that was the lady asked RFK about. Bromium sounds like something at a college frat house. I don't know. But anyway, once you start, you have to keep doing it, because otherwise you can actually have what's called a rebound effect. Because as you start to cool the planet by putting reflective particles into the sky, you can have an intermittency problem, which can cause a double catastrophe. So why would we have a social collapse, which could lead to more intermittency and a double catastrophe? How about the fact that you start geoengineering and then World War III breaks out? Well, it might be hard to keep on geoengineering in the middle of a world war. What if you're geoengineering and then we go into a grand solar minimum? Let's say you decided to cool the planet by 1 degree Celsius. Doesn't sound like much, except that we're coming into a grand solar minimum right now. And if you go and you look right now, they have these things called the climate clocks. And right now they're doing this countdown to 2030. So as we're sitting here talking, that same David Keith is saying that if we don't meet the goals by 2030, and these climate clocks, if you guys haven't seen them, it's right now counting down 4 years, 68 days. In 4 years and 68 days, the climate clock runs out. What does that mean?
What does that mean? It sounds scary. It's red. Jim, it's red.
It's a warning. It is a warning that if you don't meet their emissions reductions demands, that in 4 years, 68 days, we're going to geoengineer, because we couldn't get people to start weaning themselves off of fossil fuels. So we have to start a global geoengineering program, deploying chemicals at 60 to 90,000 feet. They've even talked about using like sunshades in space, like solar. They call them solar shields. Space-based geoengineering is another idea. There are many. Let's be real. Painting your rooftop white is geoengineering. Okay. They reflective crops, micro bubbles. They have so many different geoengineering ideas. I could go through them for the next 3 hours in detail, but we're just going to focus on sprinkling chemicals in the stratosphere to mimic volcanoes. Volcanic eruptions cool the planet. Mount Pinatubo did it in 1991. That's what all of this is modeled on. So in 4 years, 68 days, which is June 2029, just in time for Agenda 2030, just in time for in 2030 to 2032, that's when we're going to start going into the grand solar minimum. The grand solar minimum is going to last from 2032 to 2053. During that time, we're going to see estimates of up to 1 degree Celsius of cooling around the planet. And we're going to see a 70% reduction in Earth's magnetic fields.
For how long?
From 2032 to 2053.
To 2053.
Damn near 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So that be a polar shift there?
During and the whole polar shift thing, because there's a weakened magnetic field fields, and we have a sun that's putting out much less energy. And most people have this backwards, but when there are less sunspots, there's more volcanic activity, there's more earthquakes.
That's interesting. This grand solar minimum, how often does this happen? Is this like once every 6,000 years, once every 12,000 years, once every 200
the last one was the Maunder minimum, I believe, and it's called the Little Ice Age. I could bring up a chart. I don't have it.
That was the what was like the 1600s, the 1800s?
Yeah, something like that.
Mini Ice Age. It was mostly in Europe. It was in the Eastern Hemisphere. Yeah.
And I'm gonna check it out real quick. Just
cool.
if I quit fat thumbing everything, man, yeah, mom. All right, so yeah, the modern minimum was 1645 to 1715. So that was the last one. And they got a little chart here. I don't know what that's actually going to go to, but here you can see these are the weakening solar cycles. We're going into solar cycle. We're in 25 right now, right? I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, we're in 25 right now. So it's gotten weaker and weaker, and they expect that it's going to get even weaker. And right now, all the projections for 2032 through 2053 is that will be the next solar minimum.
So-
there was also like the Dalton minimum. This is the Maunder minimum right here, and then we're in the modern maximum, and then we're going into what they call a grand solar minimum, which will be something similar to
Something like that.
probably it may not be as bad as the Maunder minimum, but this is a 400 years of sunspot observations.
But
So
like pole shift notwithstanding, this is almost a reprieve from the whole global warming fear mindset. And 20 years to sort of upgrade our tech, if that's even actually an issue, to do the whole like green energy thing, fewer emissions thing. Like we don't need to do this.
Like, does it
geoengineering thing.
actually have anything to do with the temperature? Like, I question that, because like one of the things, if you're putting aluminum and barium and all these things up there, these are conductive
Yeah, I'm talking narratively.
Yeah.
So here's the way I see the narrative. Okay, they've built up all this crap around global warming. That ship is gonna sail. That's why Agenda 2030. That's why Net Zero 2050. That ship will have sailed by shortly after 2032. We're gonna see declining temperatures pretty rapidly. And nobody's going to be believing their bullshit. So they have to capitalize on it as fast as possible, which is why David Keith suggests that full-scale deployment would take several hundred specifically designed aircraft with loft chemicals, but they could do it with 15 business jets by 2029.
And if they do it by 2029, then they can keep a narrative that they were the ones that made the temperature go down.
We saved you from global warming.
Right.
It wasn't the sun going to sleep. Your overlords and saviors from the IPCC and the United Nations, we saved you from global warming by doing private jet subscale geoengineering. Or the new one is literally like, have y'all seen the Boeing 777s thing? Oh, this is hilarious. Arctic geoengineering.
Does Bill Gates understand how evil he is, or is he not to understand it?
I don't know. I mean, probably. So this is on my X account. Boeing I don't want to do that. Why is that even there? Boeing 777s could cool the planet if you don't mind acid rain. This was published April 28th, 2025. Stratospheric aerosol injection technique could put the brakes on global warming, study finds, but with damaging knock-on effects. Because at the end of the day, what people don't talk about is jet exhaust is loaded with sulfur. So when we were talking about that black carbon in the metals that end up at 60,000 feet, that's also the black carbon is coated in graphene. The metals are inside the carbon, and all the way around it is sulfuric acid, because SO2 plus H2O equal H2SO4. That's sulfuric acid. So these clouds, these planes are pumping out a whole lot of sulfur. The sulfur makes acid rain. Acid rain actually makes aluminum bioavailable in soil, which means the aluminum gets uptake into your plants, your crops, your trees. So when people are saying, well, why am I seeing an increased amount of aluminum in my farmland? Well, look no further than acid rain, something that was talked about when I was in middle school, high school. We don't talk about acid rain anymore. Suddenly it gets mentioned again, and I'm like, holy crap, they're talking about the thing. But this is the article from the Telegraph. Boeing 777s could cool the planet if you don't mind acid rain. And they're literally saying, well, we could do this, at the North Pole, because again, what were we talking about earlier? The tropopause. At the North Pole over the Arctic, the tropopause is typically around anywhere from 38 to 32,000 feet. So instead of having to invent new planes and that run on hydrazine so they don't freeze up when they fly really high up into 60 to 90,000 feet, they could just use existing Boeing 777s running on what's called a high thermal stability additive. It's a HITS additive, Spec 8 AQ462. They could literally put this, jet fuel additive in the plane and then load it full of sulfur, or actually create pumps and pipes specifically for doing this. But either way, they could produce a whole lot of SO2 in the stratosphere because they wouldn't have to fly as high. And with an added benefit, it would be in the Arctic, out of sight, out of mind. So this is one of the just the latest articles. I mean, this is, just
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, April 28th. So they're constantly coming out with these things. And I keep up with it by actually going to the geoengineering group. If I just type in geoengineering group, I keep, group, and there they are. And I just go here and I just, I used to debate Ken Caldera and David Keith in this group. You can actually see my posts in this group. But this is actually all the geoengineers like posting exactly what they're doing. Like it's
they're in a group called geoengineering, just talking about this stuff.
I mean, look, if I go here and I type in Jim Lee, this is me arguing with these fools. Like all these posts.
Is this a public group? Like anyone can join this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe. Like we're talking about hurricanes. This is me in 2013. Hurricane hacking. The Department of Homeland Security enters the weather modification business. And this is me, and then this is John Latham. He's passed away, and Stephen Salter. They're the inventors of the marine cloud brightening boat. I've been doing this so long. Like I used to be in their group, and I actually got booted out by their moderator, who's Andrew Lockley, for threatening to tar and feather on Ken Caldera. It's actually kind of funny. But if you actually type in, I think it's resonated@gmail.com, you'll get just my posts, and you can see like, all of my posts, back to like, how will geoengineers address the statements of the American Meteorological Society, World Meteorological Society, organization, and the National Research Council on Weather Modification. And basically I just made the argument to them that, look, you guys are retarded because they've been cloud seeding. And this actually got the most views of anything that's ever been on their forum. Okay. It's got 329 views. That's a big deal in their world. But they did, when they banned me, they deleted my post. Just this post, only this post. What's funny is Ken Caldera responds to me in the post, and because they're stupid, it's right there. Despite the AMS, the WMO, and the NRC scientific work stating clearly in weather modification is unproven science and large-scale experiments should be limited to modeling, the geoengineering community pushes ahead with their rebranded weather modification techniques. And then I give all of the scientific references that show that for 80 years, nobody's been able to prove that cloud seeding actually freaking works. Oh, and then I go on to talk about Bill Gates, the hurricane tamer, and how literally this is William Gates III. That's Bill Gates. And that's Ken Caldera and Nathan Mervhold, the patent troll. There's Stephen Salter, the inventor of the marine cloud brightening boats. And then John Latham's on there also. Then there's Lowellwood and freaking Roderick Hyde, Edward Teller, Roderick Wood, Lowellwood, Edward Teller, Lowellwood, and Roderick Hyde wrote the first paper on geoengineering in 1997 at Lawrence Livermore National Lab. And they were the ones who saw Pinatubo eruption and said, hey, we should do this. We should mimic volcanoes. And then they hired Ken Caldera to do the computer modeling. They wrote a second paper. Then they wrote a third paper. Then it was signed off on by Paul Crutzen, the Nobel laureate, and geoengineering was born. So these pricks are all on a freaking patent together to steer hurricanes. You cannot make this shit up right here. So what had happened was Ken Caldera and his buddies are all, getting drunk on like New Year's Eve. And Nathan Mervold, he's the patent troll. If you don't know about the guy, now you know the name. You should look it up. It's pretty funny. And they have this, they basically come up with these ideas to steer hurricanes. So not only do they do that, but then they go and they petition Congress to actually do something about this. This is my original article on it from 2013. Hurricane hacking, the Department of Homeland Security enters the hurricane weather modification business. And there's the patents. And this is literally Bill Gates, Ken Caldera, and all of the other geoengineers. And it says, operate storm suppression equipment, alert at least one interested party as to the potential of storm damage. I'm going to translate that for you. Hey, oil company in Louisiana. Hey, oil company in Texas. There's a hurricane coming your way. Provide information to at least one oil company interested party of the cost and likelihood of reducing damage for at least one interested party, oil company. Receive at least one payment from an interested party. Receive request from interested party to provide storm protection. So they literally have a patent for you pay me and we will steer the hurricane away from your business. And I made the argument to Ken Caldera, what kind of sick head are you? Because if you steer it away from this oil company and you steer it that way, you killed a bunch of poor people. God didn't do it. Climate change didn't do it. You did it. Does that make sense?
Are you connecting this to Katrina?
I am, very much so.
Okay.
So the reason this is connected to Katrina is because that's exactly what they said they wanted to do. So basically they got drunk on New Year's. Nathan Mervold goes and files all these patents. Here's all the patents. Starts January 3rd, 2008. There's 4 patent applications, all with Bill Gates, Ken Caldera, and Nathan Mervold on steering hurricanes. Then February 6th, the Department of Homeland Security has a hurricane modification workshop. Then in April at the Weather Modification Association conference, new unconventional concepts and legal ramifications, they're talking about steering hurricanes there. Atmospheric heating as a research tool. William Cotton, who I interviewed on engineering hurricanes, reducing hurricane intensity using upwelling pumps, all this stuff. So they actually finally did assign a patent so that it's not just a patent application. They did receive a patent for steering, hurricanes or weakening them at the very least. And it was Invention Science Fund LLC, which is now Breakthrough Energy. Kind of funny how these things all come around. But then they actually had a U.S. Senate committee hearing, Weathering the Storm, the need for a national hurricane initiative. NOAA refused to actually help the Department of Homeland Security do studies. So the DHS actually did it themselves. It's called the Hurricane Aerosol Microphysics Program. Also HERMIT, which stands for Hurricane Mitigation Experiment. Plus NASA did the Genesis and Rapid Intensification Program. And now there's actually a company which
Genesis and Rapid Intensification Program.
Yeah, they got a grip on that thing, man. And this is actually the presentation straight. It's on my YouTube channel from the AMS meeting where they did not mind talking about it. So you can actually watch their presentation at the AMS on steering hurricanes.
Jim, they got a lot of different ways to mess with these hurricanes. Do you think they're using HARP as Dane Wigington thinks?
No, that's not a thing. Everything Dane Wigington says is fake and gay. I mean, I'm sorry to be like that. Like, Dane is literally on a panic attack podcast tour right now because of me. I'm his Lord Voldemort. He can't really say my name out loud, but he is scared to death of me. You know it, Dane. I debated him in 2014. It was not good. He actually threatened to sue the guy that moderated the debate and recorded it, that if he ever released it to the public. So I'll reiterate, I will gladly debate you and destroy you. But when I make my new website, I'm going to destroy you anyway, because then everybody's going to see what you really said, Dane. But no, HARP is a whole different animal. I have an entire page just on HARP. If you want to actually look at it, you just go to weathermodificationhistory.com and it says facts space weather modification. So HARP is about space weather modification. It's a totally different animal. Okay. So what do they do with HARP? I actually made a PowerPoint presentation. If anybody ever wants to just really know what the hell is going on with HARP, you can just come here and you can download my PowerPoint, and I can throw it up here real quick and just kind of rip through it. But what is an ionospheric heater? How does it work? This is not one. This is one. I map them all out. I have climateviewer.org where I've mapped out every single one of the high-powered microwave stations on the planet. That was one of my early gigs that I did, like in the 2010s.
What's the one in the middle of America there? Is that the
That's Platteville. Platteville. It's a super darn. Here, I'll show you.
Is that the one from Contact?
No, that's EVLA that you're thinking of. Here, I'll show it to you real quick. Why not? You know what? It's actually on this page right here. There should be a map. Where's my map? Let me go back down past the sounding rockets, and here's the link to the map, and I'll just click that. So bam, and that brings up the ionospheric heaters of the world plus the incoherent scatter radars. So I can actually show you this in 3D. It's always funner in 3D, so let's make it fun. If I click right here, this is Arecibo. If I come down here to the ground and I zoom out a little bit, you can actually see it in the ground, and it's in 3D. Right there in the middle of that dome, this is the dome from the
GoldenEye.
Yeah, GoldenEye.
Right.
These 6 antennas you see down here at the bottom are the Arecibo enhanced high frequency heating instrument.
No, Arecibo died, right? It collapsed.
Yeah. So it collapsed. All right. The big gantry up top fell down, which you can actually see in the satellite shot. So when I scroll out, you can actually see that's what it looks like now.
Yeah.
Okay. But they've put the antennas back up. So they're taking the dome down, but they're putting, because you see the shadows from the ionospheric heater, but you can see that they're putting those back up.
Why do they look like crucifixes?
Good question. So real quickly, you can actually just go over here, and I can just fly around to them. So I can click this one, go over to Tromsø. This is in Norway. This is actually 3 HARPs in one, because you have one array here, one array here, and one array here. You click on this, you can actually see the picture of it. And I did a little overlay action with that. So you can actually see this array is 5.5 to 8 megahertz, 5.5 to 8 megahertz, 3.85 to 5.65 megahertz. We actually got in contact with the guys from Tromsø just recently on my Telegram chat. Jeff reached out to the people that run the place, and they gave us full heads up displays on this bitch. So I can actually go to Tromsø, and then I can go ISCAT schedule and actually tell when the heater is going to be on. So now I can actually come here to the ISCAT portal, and if you see right here is orange is heating. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually tell when the ISCAT's going to be on. So if I just go to next month, let's say, go to June, it's going to be on from Wednesday, 6/25. So that's June 25th through June 27th. The heater will be on that entire time. So you can tell right there. Like I can look and tell ahead of time.
Something's happening that day.
Yeah. So when people say like, is HARP doing this or HARP doing that? I'm like, it's not on. And how do I know it's not on? Because of things like this. Like this is the HARP in Norway. But obviously they don't have this level of detail at the HARP facility. So how do you know when it's on? Well, you can look at things like web SDR. HARP operates on 2.8 to 10 megahertz. You can turn on web software defined radio. You can actually listen to the signal for 2.8 to 10 megahertz in that area and tell if HARP is turned on or not. In fact, I have a whole slew of people, shout out to Radical Ralph Rousseau, who will literally like shoot me a text, HARP's on, you know, like it's on right now. Go tune in. And I'll go tune in. Sure as shit, it's on. So like it's almost never on. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make with this. So we can actually look and we can see, and then even like if I go to Tromso and I go to like updating power monitor, like I can actually look at in real time and see, is it, you know, like when this actually comes on that, you know, on the 25th, I might live stream it and we can like show the satellite view of the, you know, the weather going on and all that all simultaneously and be like, it's on right now and it's not really affecting any of the weather.
All right.
You know, that's Wednesday. That's a podcast night. We can bring you back for it.
Jim, do you want to like finish this? You want to finish your presentation on the HARP that we're going through?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then, like, you know, and then generally we go from 9 to 11 on this show.
Yeah, we're pretty well past my bedtime.
Let's
yeah, because I mean, I
feel like you can just go. You can go, and there's a lot, but
and I want you to
so
too.
much so we can all suck in.
Yeah, I don't want to overdo it. So I mean, when you brought up a whole nother category like HARP, it's like, I mean, you're really opening a can of worms because then you get into like all the VLF stations in the world. You know, then you got the Doppler guys that are like, oh, it's the NEXRADs that are controlling the radar, the weather. Oh, what about the missile defense radars? You know, all of these things. You said the EVLA, you know, like down here, that's, you know, I've got all those things mapped out. I'm a map nerd, so like this is the EVLA you were just talking about from that film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's
zoom
it,
out a little bit.
Huh?
Can you zoom out a little bit? No, the other way.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what they look like.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean they're very iconic. They've been in many movies, but that's the expanded very large array EVLA, and it's actually this big now. So like these are just to give an idea of how big it is.
Right.
So it's pretty damn big. You know what I
shit.
mean?
Yeah, because I feel like I drove right by it.
Yeah, I mean
randomly, like just hey, look, it's
later.
the contact satellites.
It's in
This stuff seems like we're not going to be able to
on.
stop
You can
any
actually
of this.
see where it's at. So
This
that's
stuff seems like we're not going to be able to stop any of this. What's next? I mean, we can't. What do we do here? Like HARP is on. They're geoengineering. They're pumping stuff into our air. People are claiming that these chemicals are in their blood, in their water. What do we do as a group?
I just want to make one last point about the HARP thing. So like people talk about HARP, which is all the way up here in Alaska. Okay. So it's here. That's HARP. All right. That's where the HARP location is, 3.6 million watts. And people make a big damn deal about HARP. What people don't make a big damn deal about is right here in Eglin Air Force Base is the most powerful radar in the world. And it's 32 million watts. HARP is 3.6 million watts. The Eglin Air Force Base ANFPS 85, which is a beast. I mean, it's an absolute beast. This sucker is literally 32 million watts.
Pointing right at the Gulf.
Yeah, it's a huge over the horizon radar, you know, tracking all that stuff. It's part of the Space Surveillance Network, phased array radar. It's the same thing as HARP, you know, it's much smaller antennas all in a tight little group, and it's 10 times more powerful than HARP. But nobody's saying, hey, Eglin Air Force Base is controlling the weather, but they want to
This
say
is
that
another
all these.
example of what you were saying with the chemtrail people. You got folks that are really freaked out about something, but their information is way off. They're making
Yeah.
the wrong points in the wrong direction. But if they sort of grounded themselves a little bit and oriented properly, they could make some salient points.
Right. And I think it's by design. I mean, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just let's talk. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that a lot of this is by design, that the loudest mouths that are out there, they're always making these points that can be easily disproven. So that gives the media the ability to mock and ignore you. They always say, at first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So the reason why, I'm shadow banned, and the reason why people like Dane are elevated is because he's not a threat. He's actually either a useful idiot or he's in on the whole thing.
Right.
I don't ever make those kind of judgment calls because A, I'm not God, B, I'm not a mind reader, and C, I don't know him personally. All I can judge him on is based on the things that the claims that he makes, and use the Socratic method and use, logical deduction to go, is this real or not? So what I did coming into chemtrails was, I'm just going to evaluate this based on the claims. The claims are there's aluminum and barium in the rainwater. It's in the jet fuel. Okay, that problem solved. Moving on to the next thing. There's pumps and pipes. Let me see. Show me your pumps and pipes. Every pump and pipe I found, it's not a thing. Dane Wigington in 2007 wrote a paper called Decreased Solar Uptake Due to Persistent Jet Contrails. Don't make me show it to you. I'm saving this for later. You know what? I'm going to do one last thing.
All right, this is the last thing, Jim.
This is the last thing I'm going to do, and then we're just
going to play the video. We're going to say goodbye, and we'll reconnect and play the video and
Yeah, so I'm going to show you guys just a quick preview, because nobody's seen this yet, and why not? I'm going to put all of this out there, and to the haters, to the naysayers, to anybody who's doubting anything I've got to say, there will be no doubt left in your mind after I release this website, because this is the up and coming, and nobody has seen this ever, because I've only shown this to my moderators in my Telegram chat. Chemtrailfacts.com. This is what it's going to look like. And if you want to just throw it up there real quick, I'll
let's go.
So this is going to be the website, and it's going to have all of these categories that we just talked about, and whether or not do they make clouds. Bring the evidence. Is it geoengineering? Is it weather? These are just placeholder images, obviously, but what are they spraying? Is it geoengineering? Is it weather modification? Is it poison? Is it sounding rockets? Is it weather warfare, or is it contrails? And I'm not going to scroll down any further because I don't want to embarrass anybody right now. But it's also going to have all the receipts on every single liar who's ever told us a fib on the internet about chemtrails and created this narrative that we're currently living under, which started in 1997 with a guy named Richard Fink. And then in 1999, William Thomas went on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. I have the original recordings when he first called them contrails and said it had to do with NATO fuel and ethylene dibromide. And then the very next time he called into Art Bell, chemtrails were born. And every single person that's told their little stories along the way, I have all of that, all the evidence on all of these people. It is overwhelmingly bad. And at this point, I figure I'm just going to do a service to everybody and put them all on blast simultaneously, because if I don't, I will not have done what I set out to do. I promised my daughter that she would not grow up in a world where bastards like Bill Gates and the United Nations and David Keese and Ken Calderas can control the temperature of the planet. Oh, by the way, when you go and you geoengineer the entire planet the way they want to, you change where the rain falls. And people may never see rain again. So geoengineering governance is literally deciding how to deal with the dead people. I don't want that to happen, and I'll be damned if a bunch of fib-telling, money-making, fear-porn pushing people are going to stop me from making America healthy again, let alone the world. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys letting me do all that.
Well, let's call this part 1, man, because then we need to talk solutions. You've laid it out.
Yeah.
We need to talk solutions.
I'm curious about the fuel itself. Also,
I was about to say, right.
But
like
we're not gonna go any deeper because each
Part
one
two
of them
coming.
are much bigger topics.
Make jet fuel clean again.
Even if we had electric planes, dude, there's still problems. They gotta avoid those regions. So yeah, we'll talk solutions next time. It's been a blast, talking with you guys.
Really appreciate you, man. Like, wow, what a download.
Yeah, this is really amazing. Big love to everybody. Thank you to the people who tuned in, the commenters. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m. ClubMaha.com, Patreon.com.
Follow Jim, ClimateViewer.
Follow Jim at ClimateViewer. Stay tuned for the new upcoming Chemtrail Facts website where receipts are going to be posted. Question long-held beliefs around the understanding. Look at reflect on this. Think for yourself. Don't just trust Jim. He said, "Don't even trust me."
Don't take my word for it.
Take his word for it. Come to
He's
your
got
own
receipts. Go check his receipts.
Look at the receipts. That was an awful lot of data. You kind of put Ian Carroll to shame.
Well, whenever I get the chance to actually talk to him, I'm gonna really just make his head explode on the screen.
Well, he'll be back. He just transitioned into Candace for a little bit. But
my wife watches Candace all the time. She's like, "What the hell? Who's?" And I was like, I kind of knew that was going to happen.
That's the dude. That's the dude right there. Yeah, totally.
Saw the chart. All right, amazing. Thank you, everybody. Let's go. Let's grow. Woo.
Peace.
The sun on the field, the feeling I feel when I'm living my life for what's real. Make America healthy, feeling like it's time for a change. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back to common sense, making America healthy again. We're going back up healthy again.